consolidation of the dispatch centers. At this point, I'll turn it over to the sheriff.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Thanks to the commissioners for allowing us to come in and make a presentation on the recommendation that we have come up with regarding the combination of two dispatchers or two dispatch centers into one dispatch center for the county. I think we've probably been meeting for about a year when this issue first came up about a consolidation plan. We've had many meetings. The county has done a study done by Kimball, which recommends, that study ultimately recommended that the two dispatch centers be consolidated to one center. So what we'd like to do today is to show you the slide presentation we have, which has some facts and other information for you to consider. So we'll get started here. Improving 911 services in Preble County. It's a proposal for consolidated 911 communication services within the county. And Jack, I'll let you do this.
Just go to the
next. Yeah. We've got some audio that we want you to listen to.
That will come at the end.
And it'll come at the end of it, but it kind of gives you some idea of a process that goes through now when a 911 call is received. In this instance, it's going to be a wireless call for somebody in the City of Eaton that was having a stroke, and the victim, or the lady that was actually having the stroke, is the one making the 911 call. Okay, and we'll get to that before this slide's done. Currently, we have two 911 call centers, one at the Sheriff's Office and one at the City of Eaton Police Division. Each center provides 911 and communication services for law enforcement, fire and EMS, and government maintenance. The Sheriff's Office provides services for everybody in the county, with the exception of the City of Eaton. The City of Eaton is responsible only for the City of Eaton, but currently we provide backup for each other. Each handle approximately 17,000 calls for service annually. You want to say 17,000 actual dispatches, not necessarily 17,000 phone calls, but calls for service that actually result in a call for service. And each provides backup communications and 911 for the other one in the event that something may go wrong. Often staffed by one dispatcher. A lot of times on midnights and day shift we have one dispatcher. Evening shift we try to staff two. A majority of the time City of Eaton's dispatch is only staffed by one dispatcher. And they are responsible for taking and dispatching all calls for service that we mentioned above.
Go ahead. We got that at the end.
When times were good. Both 911 centers have been understaffed since the economic downturn in 2009 that we all faced. Prior to 2009, staffing was two fully staffed 911 centers, 14 dispatchers between the two centers, and for us, two dispatchers were on duty at all times, and the majority of the time, or a good part of the time, there could have been two dispatchers on duty at the City of Eaton. And even at this time, we could not have met proposed state requirements that are in law now as a passage of House Bill 360, and we'll get into that in a few more slides on some of those requirements. Why change? The committee doesn't feel that the duplication of resources is it's no longer economical to be able to staff two centers and duplicate everything that we're duplicating today. Both the centers are currently understaffed. In the next year, each dispatch center is facing capital upgrades that will cost a minimum of $320,000. The City of Eaton has not done anything there, but the county, partnering with the City of Eaton, have upgraded the console communications equipment, as you guys are aware, for our office. And the decision to move forward on that was based on some cost savings to the taxpayer on jumping on a Montgomery County contract. We were able to save substantial dollars by jumping on that contract. State mandate, House Bill 360, and that was actually signed into law by the governor in 2012, will limit the number of public safety answering points, and that's PSAPs. There are 2 of them in the county, or 911 centers in each county. Only one center will feasibly allow Preble County to meet the proposed mandates. Statewide Emergency Services Steering Committee, which is a committee that was formed as a result of House Bill 360, have proposed mandates that will require, and we expect passage of those mandates through JCAR, a minimum staffing of 2 dispatchers, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, direct supervision, and minimum training requirements. And those minimum training requirements are substantial. They're talking a minimum class on dispatching services. They're talking about requiring 911 PSAPs to offer emergency medical dispatching, which is a protocol and a class all of its own, with mandated in-service training of 40 hours annually for each dispatcher. Failing to change, House Bill 360, the Treasurer of the state will not be allowed to disperse 100% of the next generation money to counties that do not comply with the standards established by the steering committee. And it progressively limits the number of PSAPs in each county for which annual disbursements may be made based on the population. One 911 center for Preble County makes sense. The same House bill prohibits disbursements to a county for any PSAP cost from the wireless 911 fund unless the PSAP complies with rules establishing the technical and operation standards from House Bill 360. And failing to change, basically, we have a loss of effective use of the 911 money from the wireless side of it, totaling approximately $90,000 annually. And we would be unable to meet the future requirements for 911 without additional funding and staffing. Change is being mandated by the state of Ohio with or without our input, and I think that's one of the bigger issues we have. We can either come up with a solution ourselves and go down that, or the state of Ohio can tell us what we're going to do. I think we're better off to do it on our own terms. Countywide proposal. It's a recommendation from the committee that the board consider placing a countywide communications / 911 levy on the November 3rd, 2015 ballot. This levy would ensure funding 100%, a dedicated funding source of 100% for the communications and the 911 operations for the entire county. And those funds would be dedicated and only could be spent for 911 and public safety communication services. It cannot be spent for anything else. Consolidating all emergency communications and 911 operations into one fully equipped and staffed communication center, and all of the Preble County public safety stakeholders will continue to meet to develop an implementation plan and operational strategy, if this would be approved. The cost, based on estimates from the auditor's office, would be $52.50 per year, based on $100,000 valuation on the property. The committee would also recommend to the board that if this was approved, that they drop the $5 current assessment for 911 that everybody sees on all approved parcels within the county. The levy could run for no more than 5 years, and it would have to be voted on again. And the budget numbers are based on a 10-year projection covering all 911 and communication costs and House Bill 360 mandates. Some benefits would drop the current $5 assessment as the taxpayers that we each pay now. We would have 2 dispatchers on duty, 3 during peak hours, typically on an evening shift or into the midnight shift. And we can meet House Bill 360 requirements on standardized procedures, regular training, supervision, and staffing. And it would allow us to keep up with updated hardware, software, and infrastructure costs. What will the levy cover? All communication center staffing costs, with 2 dispatchers at all times, 3 at peak times like we discussed, a direct supervisor to manage that operation, dispatcher training, 5-year levy based on the 10-year budget, hardware, communications infrastructure, software needs and updates, and operations, standardization of police, fire, and EMS operations. It's one of the biggest hurdles I think we face now is standardization throughout the county on how we dispatch, whether it be a fire, EMS. Everybody's kind of got their own thing that they like to do, and we kind of lack standardization. Reduce the dispatch and communication times, improved efficiency, and it would also cover our computer-aided dispatch, our leads cost, which is a law enforcement database used by law enforcement, and other costs associated with running this center. The big question is, what would it improve? It will allow us to meet 911 communication requirements as outlined by House Bill 360. It would provide a single, fully staffed, fully trained, and fully equipped dispatch center. It would meet the current and future 911 communication needs of law enforcement, fire, and EMS. 911 and communications is a changing environment. What we know today, my guess is in 5 years, we probably will not know what that's going to be. You're going to be seeing text, you're going to be seeing the ability for video, photos, things of that nature to be texted or sent to that 911 operator that's answering that call for service. It would meet current and future communication infrastructure, hardware, and software requirements to maintain our operations. It would eliminate the transferring of calls between dispatch centers, improving response, which we do now. Wireless calls are the big issue. All of the wireless calls in the county come into the sheriff's office. If that call is a call for service within the City of Eaton, we have to transfer that to the City of Eaton, or could be to an adjacent county, depending on where that cell tower is at. And reduces costs by eliminating the duplication of infrastructure, hardware, and software. It would allow us to save money on general operations due to efficiencies and the economy of scale.
I want to play an audio clip for you. This was one that Sheriff Simpson mentioned early on. This is a 911 call that came in by cell phone, and if you're not familiar with that, all cell phone calls in a county have to go to one public safety answering point. So every cell phone call, whether it's a passerby or even a resident in our county that makes that call, goes to the Sheriff's Department. This is a call, and you may find this a little bit disturbing. That's the disclaimer. This poor woman is home alone, has her cell phone, picks up the cell phone, makes the 911 call. You will find that the audio is garbled. No, that's the actual audio. That's a condition that occurs when you're having a mini stroke or a stroke. So I'll preface that by saying, and if you would listen to this, the 911 caller calls for a squad for the city. The caller is using a cell phone, so the call went to the Sheriff's 911 center. The Preble County dispatcher relayed the call, and that information went to the city dispatcher, who on this given day was an off-duty patrolman that was setting in to cover a staffing vacancy.
Something wrong with you, might be having a mini stroke. Okay. There's something very wrong with me. 109 Leatherman Place, hospital show. been dispatched and they are on their way to you. I'm here, don't worry, I'm right here with you. I've got my squad on the way. They'll be there any minute, any minute. It's okay. You live at 109 Lebanon Place, right? Yes. Okay. How old are you? I'm only 33 years old. Okay. Okay, it's gonna be okay? Just calm down, all right? I just want to spend your mind. I understand, and I know it's scary. So we're gonna get that squad right there, and we're gonna take care of you, okay? Okay. Just do me a favor. Just think about your breathing, okay? And try to keep your breathing under control, and just try to not get so excited.
So that gives you a little idea of, in this particular case, that call came into our office. It was transferred, City of Eaton picked it up. And in this case, the dispatcher had nothing else going on. If you heard, there were no phone calls, no other radio traffic. So he was able to stay on the phone with this lady who was actually having a stroke. In the background, we were dispatching the fire department in Camden. I actually just picked that up while I was standing here. But in the event of 2 or 3 more phone calls ringing or a 911 call, what are we going to do with this lady that's on the phone having a stroke? So that just kind of shows you what goes on with a dispatcher, and that was on a calm period for 3 or 4 minutes. I think he was on the phone with her and did not have to hang up that phone or tell her please hold because I've got to deal with some other emergency. So we just want to give you a sense of that. We think that this could be the cheapest phone call that you ever make when it comes to your safety and the ability to get adequate staff on the other end of that 911 call, adequate staff for police, fire, EMS on that radio to be able to handle that emergency. Currently, right now, some large-scale emergency, some could be a massive fire, it could be a chemical spill, it could be a tornado during the storm season. Both centers would be overwhelmed at this point should they have to deal with something like that. There would just be no way that they could even try to manage that with the staffing that we have. We're asking for your consideration and support on the issue as we would the public. We certainly want the public to have a voice in this, which is why our recommendation to the board is that you allow the voters to decide whether or not this is something they want to support by a ballot issue, and see if they think this is a worthwhile use of their money. Comes out to about 14 cents a day to make sure that we can handle emergencies within the county appropriately. Any questions for the board that we might be able to provide answers
what the dispatch does is vitally important state laws every day. I sat with the dispatcher probably a month ago, and it was slow morning, and she was very, very busy. Nothing going on really. I 100% support this merger. I think it makes sense for the 2 dispatches not to be continuing to pay for 2. It doesn't make sense to pay for 2. But I think that we don't need a levy. I think that we can pay for this with the 2 entities joined together to pay for it. We can do that without asking the county taxpayers for another $1 million. So I 100% support it. I think that we need to. Honestly, we need 2 on duty because it's not humanly possible to be taking calls and sending out calls at the same time. It just can't be done. but I've looked at the figures and I'm not seeing anything that makes me think that we can't do this between the two entities.
No, I think it only makes sense to consolidate the two PSAPs. I think it's going to make it for a much better and healthier 911 system. With the numbers I'm looking at, Denise, I'm not sure, maybe you can share with me the numbers you're looking at, but it's going to cost us over $750,000 out of our pocket if we don't go for a levy. I think we shared a couple weeks ago with you that
Here are the numbers I'm looking at.
Eaton can, at any time, say we can't afford to do this, and we have to take on the whole county. They don't have to pay us a dime. So you're looking at $800,000+ So I do have some concerns, but I'll look at your numbers here and see what I can.
Well, I hope that Eaton's not in that dire of a situation that they would be ready to abandon their public safety. I would think people would want, that we would have known that, I think, that if they were ready to abandon their dispatch completely, I think we would have heard about that. Right now, they're paying $400,000. We pay $600,000, $591, I think is the number that I saw.
I had about 456.
Well, it depends on which numbers I
Right.
looked at the feasibility study.
Right.
And I saw 591 in there, so that's the numbers I went with. Because I'm assuming that you gave them the numbers, is why I just went with the feasibility study.
I'll clarify, I have 456,000 out of my current general fund budget.
Okay, but that's not your total cost?
That's not the total cost.
Okay, so the total cost is more like the 600, right?
Right, when you combine what's taken out of the two 911 funds, but
Okay, right.
a majority of it's out of general fund.
We've had this discussion. We have $210,363 in our 911 fund, and that's the $5 assessment that we're given, that all the people pay. I've read the revised code when we passed that, and it talks about starting a answering point and also operating and maintaining the answering point. So I'm not sure why, we have $210,000 toward our upgrade, which we needed. That's how all this started. The wireless 911 fund, I have read things. Somebody needs some clarification of what we can spend that money on. I think you said maybe training for the dispatchers. We have $328,000 in that wireless 911 fund that we are not spending. So we need to find out how we can spend it and why we can spend it. I calculated because you wanted 11 dispatchers and then a supervisor.
Correct.
And the supervisor will be trained, I'm hoping, to answer calls also?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I assume that. So I calculated the dispatcher cost at $651,103 for the 11 and the supervisor. And this is all based on the numbers. This is on page 30 of the feasibility study, because it has three dispatchers, and we're only going to go with 2, so I had to do that math myself. So
We couldn't afford 3 all the time.
we couldn't. 651,103. The operating cost that I got out of the feasibility study was $165. This is just yours. I didn't include the cities because we want to be. And then the technical maintenance was $55,675 for the to maintain the consoles and that regular. So I came up with a yearly cost of $871,778, which isn't much more than what we're paying now. And this is something that can be discussed, but to me, if Eaton, the City of Eaton pays $400,000 now, if they can cut their costs down to $300,000, plus not having the cost of having their own PSAP, they would just, a shared service agreement between the two entities, they would be saving $133,288 per year, plus the ongoing savings of not having to dispatch and not having to do those upgrades. So I'm not seeing why we need a levy. I think we could do this between the two entities. We could do this And because I agree, we need it. I think it's important, and I think we need 2 dispatchers on all the time, and I really think that it's cost effective and it makes sense. So, but I'm not seeing where we need a levy.
Denise, would you just propose that?
Hey Brad, could you come up, please, state your name?
Just wondering about the proposal of the
State
city.
your name, Brad.
Brad Collins with the City of Eaton.
Thank you.
The City of Eaton residents are part of Preble County, so City of Eaton residents are already paying towards the county the same taxes and assessments that everyone else is. So you're proposing that we pay again?
But you're already paying again, so, because you have your own right now, so you're already paying that. Do you propose that the city is able to take that $400,000 cost and put it on the entire county? I don't think, and unless this is on you, unless the Eaton PD is going to come to the township, I live in Summers Township, I pay for the service, the sheriff comes to my house if I need him. Unless Eaton PD is going to come to my house too now, I'm now paying 10 times what I was paying before for the same service that I'm perfectly satisfied with. I think the sheriff, I get to hear the dispatchers, my husband's on the fire department, I get to hear them and they do a fantastic job. So you're asking that the rest of the taxpayers to pay for something that Eaton already has, and there's a reason why you have your own, is the call volume here in the city. It's the reason why you have your own.
Well, actually, we're kind of facing the same issue with dispatch services in general. So even if it's a standalone, even if the City of Eaton wasn't coming here, we're still looking at the same issues with staffing, training, capital improvements and things like that. So there's a cost increase for if the city stands alone. There's a cost increase for the county if it stands alone, as far as providing the staffing and service that's needed. So looking at a fair distribution across the county, just the countywide levy was the way that the group was discussing to see what the citizens' participation would be, and then just a fair funding across the board.
Okay, so what will happen with the $400,000 you're currently spending?
We're currently
Will you
spending.
give that back to the taxpayers to offset this new levy?
Yeah, we're currently down, if you're just talking about the City of Eaton, since 2009, with our reduction in revenues and balancing that budget, just the police department's down 5 positions. So it would be nice to have the money to replace staffing, to replace capital costs and things like that. We still have radio communication and small other software costs and things like that. So to say that it's just $400,000 or something like that, but whatever perceived savings there is, yes, that does need to go back into public safety.
Well, and you would be saving, what I'm proposing is the county pretty much pays the same amount that they're paying now, the $600,000, and then Eaton would contribute $300,000. You're saving over $100,000 in yearly cost, and you don't have any of the costs with the PSAP or the upgrades or anything like that. So I think that would be fair. I don't think it's fair to ask the county taxpayers for another $1 million. I just don't think it's fair when we're already paying, Eaton's paying tax money, you're paying their money for the $400,000, and we're paying taxpayer money for the $600,000. It doesn't seem right to ask them for another $1 million. They're trying to feed their families, they're trying to run their businesses, and it's a substantial increase. I mean, it's 10 times what they're paying now. It's not a small increase, and that I'm assuming that per 100,000, if you had $500,000 worth of property, it would be, times 5. So, and the farmers just got hit with the CAUV. Their taxes just went up. What's plan B if this doesn't pass? Because I honestly can't see it passing. I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic here. I honestly can't see people being okay with more taxes being taken out of their pocket. So what's plan B? I think, a shared service agreement is a reasonable way to go. And, if we get to the point where Eaton can't afford to pay even the $300,000, or the county gets in dire straits, and we've cut all our costs and we've done everything we can do, that's when we go back to the taxpayers. I wasn't elected to raise people's taxes.
Couple of,
May I?
yes, but can I make a quick clarification?
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
I want to clarify a couple of issues. In your comments, you'd indicated that you referenced the 911 fund and the wireless fund. Keep in mind that currently now the law only allows us to spend that money towards 911 related expenses.
Right.
It does not allow us to spend any money out of that for communications. So you get the, let me finish and but, so the radio system, and the law is actually kind of messed up because when they wrote the law, they only allowed it for the 911 portion of this, but it's actually a two-step process. If you call 911 and you need an ambulance or a fire truck or a police officer, there's a second phase of that. We have to tell somebody, come to your house. And the 911 law does not allow that. So communications is yet another aspect of what we've got to deal with in this thing.
And we've had this discussion, we've gone around this bend before. The console was originally purchased, I believe, with 911 funds.
Right.
Okay, I don't see why anyone would have a problem with us replacing the same console, which I think is the heart of the 911.
It's the heart of the communication system.
Well, to me, you use that money to purchase the first one, it makes sense to use that money to purchase the second one. I don't, and it clearly reads that is for maintaining the answering. So you're saying that that's the communication, that that's not part of the 911?
I'm saying the Attorney General has determined that it's not part of.
I'll take my chances with the Attorney General then, because I think it's funny.
I can only tell you what he said, what his office says the law says. And I disagree with our inability to use that money. I think we should be able to use that money. But with that legal opinion out there, I'm not willing to sign my name to anything. That's not me. The other two things I wanted to, just for everybody that's here today, the 911 assessment raises about $86,000 a year. I think I budget for $86,000. The wireless brings in about $90,000 per year, and that kind of fluctuates based on how many cell phones we have that have addresses listed for the county. So between those two, we're raising about $178,000 between those two, if I do the math right. Which.
That's why I like to round.
Right. So we'll say $180,000. So it's tough to assign that money to anything year after year after year, because before you know it, the expenses of what you're trying to assign that to outweigh what you're actually bringing in.
Well, and with that, I mean, we've accumulated money in that fund, in the 911 fund, so we have the $210,000. To me, if we pay for the console upgrade, it's $277,000, I think we put in from the general fund into the 911 fund to pay for that. Pay that back. And if we just let that accumulate again, by the year 2027, which is our magic year from Motorola, we'll have another $1 million in there. So we'll have that accumulated money to do any upgrades as we move along. And once we figure out what we're allowed to spend in wireless 911 money on, you know, that's a lot of money for training, $328,000. I mean, that, you know, training is part of the training dispatchers. That can be used for training, so we can use that. And I'm just talking about the money that we're spending right now for, you know, we'll have the extra employees, which will be the City of Eaton's employees. It comes to about $900,000.
But we haven't addressed the communication side, and the communication side is big. We're going to be at the end of our life cycle on, and I don't want to get too technical for the people that are here, but we have a 5-site radio system in the county for fire and EMS that they're dispatched off of, that they talk on and stuff. That is coming to the end of its life cycle within the next 5 years. And I would expect that upgrade to be able to maintain that for the fire and EMS side to probably be between $600,000 and $750,000 when we start site by site and updating that technology.
I thought the radios were separate. When we talked about this originally, I thought that was, the radios are separate, keep them separate from the from everything, from the dispatch.
They're-
That's what I remember being told.
They're separate from 911. It's two
Okay.
different. You
Well,
have the
then we're only
911
allowed to use
function.
this levy money for 911 money. For 911.
No. The language for the proposed levy is for 911/public safety communications. That's the only way you can spend both and deal with both issues. Communications is included within that levy language.
Yeah, I still.
But I just wanted
We
to,
just
for
bought
those
new
listening.
radios, we just bought how many new radios for the sheriff?
Right.
Two.
I'm talking about the fire and EMS side of the world.
Okay, and so, I know there are grants that the fire departments were offered. I don't know how that, I guess that they didn't get that because not everybody.
Right, that was the fire marshal's thing, but that's for,
So you're thinking of taking on all of that cost too, from the villages and everything, all of the radio costs for them also?
the county owns that, we own that. I'm not talking about the radios in their trucks and the
Okay.
portable radios. I'm talking about the backbone and the infrastructure that we use to communicate with
Thompson.
them. No,
No?
the towers, there are
Towers.
5 sites. There's a site in Lewisburg, Gratis, Camden, New Paris, and my office.
Mhm.
5 sites. That's separate from your 911 call, totally different.
Okay.
That infrastructure is, we're gonna have to start coming up with a plan to budget and replace that.
Okay.
That was originally obtained through federal funding after 9/11. Most of that came from EMA, and one of those sites was from the Greater Dayton Area Hospital Association. That grant money is gone.
So what's the life cycle on one of these towers? And how much did you say it was gonna be, 600 and, how much?
I'm estimating now between 130 and 150,000 a site to replace 2 channels on each side.
How much money is that? Just math for me.
150 times 5.
Is that 5? Okay.
750, right?
Right.
750.
Right. And that's an
the
estimate.
DHS.
And how long is the life cycle?
I'm guessing probably 10 or 15 years maybe, I don't know.
Okay. So, I mean,
10
that's
years.
still $1 million for a 10 to 15, year
And
expense.
the proposal that you saw today sticks away capital money each year to be able to do the upgrades that we're speaking about.
Well, then so does the 911 fund. The 911 fund still is accumulating money, both of them.
But can only be used for 911.
Okay.
If you're able to get the Attorney General to tell us we can do that, I'd be more than happy to do it.
I just think that if we read the language, it says it's for operating and maintaining the answering points and paying the expense of administrating and enforcing this section.
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ellen Horton. And a couple of things that I need clarified, I'll just kind of throw them all at once, okay, and then a question I'd like to ask, okay? All right, we heard that 911 call, and I'd like to know how that emergency would have been handled differently, because if I understand correctly, between the Eaton Dispatch Center and the Preble County Dispatch Center, we have 2 to 3 dispatchers on duty at any time. The proposal suggests 2 to 3 dispatchers on duty all the time. Okay, I don't see that there's an efficiency benefit there other than, the transfer of calls. And this call involved a transfer, and I'm wondering exactly how many seconds that transfer took. As far as improving safety, I want to know how, okay? All right, Sheriff Simpson was clear to tell us that the new proposal would reduce the cost of the general operations, okay, for the dispatch center. And if it's a reduction in cost, and it's being financed through tax money now, why is there a need for a levy? The numbers that Commissioner Robertson gave us are accurate from the feasibility study, there right now is $991,000 available for dispatch. And the annual cost is estimated to be $871,778. I don't see a need for a tax increase. The comment was made that the money that's now used for dispatch would be transferred to other public safety applications. Would it be more honest with the taxpayers then to say that this is not a levy being requested for 911 dispatch services, but rather for different applications of these funds for general safety. Have I made my point?
I'll let the sheriff or Jack speak on the dispatch side of it.
I think to answer your question, I think the savings comes in when we're looking at staffing 2 centers versus 1 center. I think that's where a lot of our staffing, your saving comes in.
But you would have those dispatchers in the same room.
Right, same room, answering the same phones. And to answer your question regarding what would have happened, you know, that transfer probably took 10 to 15 seconds, however it took that. The key thing is if they had another emergency in one dispatcher, he or she cannot handle 2 emergencies like that at the same time. Had there been a fire or a police officer at a fight or something like that, now they're trying to manage multiple things with and be on the phone at the same time. And it's extremely hard to do.
Sheriff, I do understand that, but I'll say again, right now, between the two, there are 2 dispatchers. You are suggesting that now there always be at least 2 dispatchers, so that eventuality is already covered. One person doing one thing while there's someone else there to carry the ball that can't be carried by a person by himself.
Right. The difference now is they're in 2 separate buildings.
Right, so I'm all for the consolidation. I'm just asking why it would necessitate a levy if it involves the same number of employees.
You're going to gain 1 extra employee.
How?
That's
I
supervisor.
need to understand. Okay, the supervisor.
Right. You have 7 positions from the city that my office currently has. You have 4 positions that the City of Eaton had. The proposal would be that we merge those 11. We hire 1 person, we appoint 1 person to manage that operation.
Okay.
So you have that. An operation that size is going to require day-to-day management.
Okay, and I'll concede that. Would it take an additional $45 per $100,000 of property value to provide that supervisor?
No. What also is that all the costs are included in what we think that budget will be for the center.
Okay, but that money is already there. I mean, Eaton has it has that paid for by their taxpayers. The county has that paid for by the county residents. And I don't see, I mean, if this is supposed to save money, and I did understand you to say that. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's looking at 2 versus 1, but yes.
Right. Well, the 2 versus 1 is going to happen, and I really want to understand why it would require a tax increase to save money.
Thank you.
Well, from our standpoint, I think the first thing is we're looking at a dedicated funding source so that we know each year that that funding is there to maintain that operation. As we saw in late 2008 and 2009, my office lost 15 positions with budget cuts. So we see what not having a dedicated funding source can do to the level of service that you have to provide or you're expected to provide.
Then I repeat the question. Would it be more accurate to present to the taxpayers that this levy is for general operations rather than for 911 services, which their taxes are already providing? And actually, taking into consideration, I do see the need for the consolidation.
I guess one of the things on that perspective is since we had to do reductions in staff back in 2009, we have increased the sheriff's personnel back up to, we've added a dispatcher and 2 detectives, and that's to the tune of about $250,000. We've also, the other part of that is with technology upgrades and some things at the jail, just this past year, we put about almost $800,000 worth of infrastructure into this facility. And that's kind of, all that's got to come out of the general fund. So there might be savings, but since the downturn and we've came back, his budget slowly increased due to these different things. So, and it's going to continue to do so.
I understand that. I really do. And, living in the county, I would like to see the sheriff's department, more, fully funded and staffed. And I totally appreciate that. But that does beg the question, are we then not obligated to justifiably ask the taxpayers for an increase for that purpose, rather than to call it 911 funds and redirect the application of the current 911 dispatch center funds to another operation.
Because, I mean, basically, what's gonna happen to the money that we're currently spending out of the general fund for the dispatch? As I think is what you're
Right.
getting at.
And
Is that actually, is that your
Okay.
question? Kind of, sort of?
No, because I know that it would go to, you know, needed services for the citizens, okay, for the residents. So I'm not questioning that at all right? I'm just saying that if you're going to the taxpayers for more money so that you can provide services that aren't in existence now. Right now, 911 calls, a dispatch service is available to the citizens of Preble County. If that money is needed for other purposes, then present it to the taxpayers that way, rather than to say, we have to finance the whole thing through a levy. You know, I live in the county. We have, you know, a lot of landowners who will be paying a whole lot more than that, you know, $50. Why should the county residents have to pay the brunt of the bill for the majority of the people who live in the City of Eaton? You know, not that I don't want them to have those services, of course I do, but not on, you know, but they should be on equal footing, you know, service per dollar that I am on. And I don't see that the way it's presented, that it is in any way fair.
You know, our goal would be to, if this levy was passed, would be to work with the board on a plan to reinvest money in our office, whatever that savings amount is, to provide you more services out in the county.
On
Now,
my dollar, well, Eaton reaps the same benefits.
keep in mind that we're providing services to El Dorado, West Manchester, Verona, West
Right.
Elkton,
And Eaton is
Gratis.
providing services to Eaton and not to me.
Mhm.
And yet I am paying the brunt of the bill for it.
Well, I think when you look at who pays county taxes, and I'll make a statement as a taxpayer, okay? That whether you live in El Dorado or Eaton or whatever township you may live in, we're all paying county taxes.
Right.
We're all county taxpayers.
Right,
So
and
this
the Sheriff's Department services everybody in the county.
Right.
See, you're
So
asking me
this-
to finance Eaton's services when I don't reap any of the benefits of those services. That's the difference.
I'm asking you to consider to dedicate, and I'll use the 100,000 mark, 4750 or 4725 annually, so we can have an adequately staffed dispatch center for those
Sure.
big emergencies. That's what so we can have, you know, that dedicated funding source. That's what I'm asking.
You're asking
Yeah,
us
asking
to
you.
spend $47.50 or whatever you said
Mhm.
per $100,000 of property value.
Right.
And the county people have much more property than the city people do. And the city people are being offered far more services than we are being offered, because their source is both the City of Eaton and the county. Big disparity.
Yeah, I think we might kind of agree, we disagree a little bit, but I understand the point you're trying to make. So.
Yes, sir, could you come up?
My name's Larry Johnson, I live in Camden. And I've been listening to, you know, the dispatch and stuff, I kind of did some figures. There's 17,000 calls a year. Well, I kind of broke it down, that's 2 calls an hour. What was that amount of cover? And I don't mind paying, but I want faster service. I'm paying right now, I'm not gonna get anything. The gentleman from Eaton come up, they're gonna beef up their police force for that money. And we're not gonna have any more deputies. So, you know, I just don't see how with 2 calls an hour rates any more dispatchers than what we have now, or a lot more. I mean, I don't know how that rates 2 on a shift, maybe 2 on first. I don't know when the big calls come. But that was my question. You know, I want everybody to have all their services, but I want to beef up Preble County Sheriff too, if that's what the money's for.
Well, it's, I guess, from my perspective, we've we've added some personnel back and continue to work with the sheriff to do that. If there's any savings realized from this, or if our revenues continue to increase, I think we continue working with the sheriff. And, you know, bolstering his budget up. Now, where he places personnel, that's totally up to the sheriff, and that's a conversation a different conversation. But like I said, we've added 3 positions in the last few years to the tune of $250,000. My biggest concern is that it's sustainable now and in the future, because we don't want to have to go through layoffs again like we did in the past, because there's no savings in the short term.
Well, you know, we need a lot more information, we need a lot more information out to the voters. We don't know, this is the first time we ever got to hear anything. And it's, you know what I mean, now we're talking about putting it on here in a couple of months. But
And this is, the study was done first year, is that correct? And this is the outcome of the.
well, you know, if Eaton was able to stretch out a little bit further, if these other police folks stretch out a little bit further and pick this, and the county sheriff, they can move and we could have one force. You know, if we're gonna, I'm just looking at those things.
Well, and I understand that, and I'll let the sheriff speak to that, but I do know that the departments work back and forth depending on what's going on, so there is.
Okay, thank you.
I want to answer Mr. Johnson's question when he's looking at 17,000 calls for service. 17,000 actual calls for service, maybe that I come to your home or I come to Mr. Johnson's home because he's a victim of theft. It's not the number of telephone calls coming in and all the services that we do. It's not as simple as that. That's actually when somebody is dispatched to a call for service, to a residence, to a traffic crash.
You know, like a regular operator picked up and it's not a 911 call and they can push it over. I mean, we could do things cheaper.
Well, right, our dispatchers answer non-emergency calls every day.
But I'm saying somebody else other than training them, where we've got to have the 2 to answer the phone for regular calls. If they're answering every call that come in, we're getting away from a 911 call. That's what I'm asking.
Right, but there are more than just the 911 calls. You may not call 911 to report that your home has been burglarized.
But what I'm saying is a trained 911 operator. I don't feel, you know, if you get that kind of, why can't they transfer the call? You know, just hire somebody that just does that.
Right, the current the standards that they're proposing is,
it's
not going to allow you to do that. If you pick up that 911 call with these current standards they're proposing, and it's an emergency medical issue, you are not allowed to transfer that unless you know for sure that the person on the other end of that phone is going to be another trained emergency medical dispatcher. That's kind of what we're doing. That's what we're seeing, and that's what's coming down the pike. But I just kind of wanted to clarify that we get hundreds of calls every day that may not result in somebody being dispatched to the house. You would be surprised why they call our office. It's unbelievable what they call our office for. If I can answer further questions for you if you have, but I just wanted to try to clarify for you.
Gary Wagner, City of Eaton. So I'm going to make a few points. As our city manager indicated, the citizens of Eaton are residents of the county. They're currently paying the same taxes anybody else is paying, so therefore they're paying for services in the county they're not really receiving. Those property taxes that they pay in the city do not go to the city coffers. They go to the county coffers and school coffers, of course. Some percentage of that does go to the city. But I don't want us to forget the fact that House Bill 360, I think it's called, mandates 1 dispatch center per county. And if you're a city over 100,000, you can have a dispatch center, I understand. This isn't going to, it's going to be mandated. Now, the city could, you talk about Plan B, and I'm not saying this is Plan B, but the city could do nothing, sit back and wait for this mandate to take place, wait for the orders to come through, let the state do it. The county would be responsible. The sheriff being the authority, the dispatch center would be under the authority of the sheriff's department. The city of Eaton would not have the dispatch center when this takes place. As far as that $300,000 or $400,000 we're talking about, Governor Kasich has limited, the government funding we're all receiving has been almost eliminated. Some taxes that we were receiving, the state taxes, et cetera, have been eliminated. We are down staffing, so we would put that money back into our safety division to bring our staffing up to where it should be in our city. And I would suspect that I understand where this lady's coming from, and actually understand where you're coming from. But I think we need to remember that we do pay taxes in the county. We're not receiving any services from the county. So therefore, we would like to receive the same services that the village of Camden receives, the village of Lewisburg receives from the county.
Well, as far as the other villages, your call volume is the reason why you have your own dispatch.
I think call volume probably is why we have it.
Right,
But
well, your call volume is why you have it.
I think initially, however, the dispatch center was there years ago. Call volume wasn't there years ago. It was there for duplication of services. So Eaton would back up the county would back up the city. Well, that's no longer required, basically. So.
Well, we're going to double the calls into the county dispatch. I'm going to be paying at least 10 times. I'm probably going to be looking at $100 instead of the $5. We're going to be paying 10 times what we're paying now, and the dispatch is going to have double the calls. So, not that I think that they couldn't handle it, but theoretically, my services could actually be downgraded because now they're answering the City of Eaton's call.
I don't think that's correct, because I think.
Well, I don't think so either, but.
I think the levy will take care of those issues, and the dollars that levy will bring in to a dedicated service.
Well, I think.
For everybody in the county, not just
Well, the city
people
will
outside
be
the
saving
corporation.
substantially by doing this merger, substantially. $130,000 per year plus the upgrade cost, which was $372,000. I think that because you are counting the taxpayers, you will be realizing a big savings. Your call volume, you can't justify, having the service, for free. I hate to say it like that, for free, when your call volume is so high and you have one.
Well, again, it's not free, you know that.
Well, no, it's not free.
Yeah.
But I meant, you can't use you are in the county, but you have a service that you're paying for now, and with the shared service agreement, you would be paying substantially less. We would have our merger, and things, we could have the dispatch the way the sheriff says that it needs to be, it makes sense that
Okay.
it needs to be good.
I just wanted to make those statements. I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure, how you doing?
I'm good, Emmett. How are you, sir?
Man, I can't complain.
Doing good. I bet he will.
Yeah, people just laugh at me when I do. My name is Emmett Boone. I live down College Corner. I'm in Preble County. And watching first of all, I'd like to say, I believe, as a county resident, I feel well served. I've had several occasions to call the sheriff's office about open doors and unoccupied residences and whatever. There's a couple of questions I had during the sheriff's presentation. He mentioned proposed House Bill 360. A proposed House bill is not a law, it's a proposed House bill. So I would assume from that there's no immediate mandate. And if House Bill 360 were actually to pass, it would be unconscionable for the state government to say, okay, we passed this bill, you got to do that right now. There's got to be a phase-in period for any changes that would impact the 911 services or communication services within the city of Eaton, the county, and the surrounding communities. So that was one question I had. There's another aspect of the presentation that I just like the dickens out of it, and that's economies of scale. The word economies of scale was mentioned in the presentation. And it's always been my understanding that when you have an economy of scale, you have an effort here and an effort here, and you combine them, you wind up with generally the same services provided more efficiently. And, you know, when we look at efficiency in government, you know, it's not always done, but it'd be nice to say, well, efficiencies in government produce cost savings. And, you know, there's another person that made the comment, well, why do we have to spend extra money to save money? I can make an argument for that, but people would normally laugh at me, you know, if I were to say, wow, you got to spend more money to save money. So you're going to have to pay more in taxes. And the other aspect of the idea of a levy besides taxpayers is dumber than a box of rocks and don't pass a levy anytime you put it on the ballot. So the idea of getting on the ballot is the primary hurdle that a person has to jump over to defeat. Because if you put a tax levy in front of taxpayers, they're going to say, oh man, it's only 50 bucks. Yeah. I spend that much on dinner. Yeah. I just don't go out to dinner one evening a year. But, you know, and I can make an argument for that. But at the same time, what burns my backside, besides a little bitty flame about that high, is the idea that a person can own a piece of property, but he doesn't own it. Don't pay your taxes. Don't pay your property taxes. Property, private property, is not a reality in a society where property is taxed. So why would we want to advocate increasing property taxes and making it more difficult for people to say, well, I own that piece of property over there. You know, that there belongs to me. And, you know, that if you don't pay your property taxes, a good sheriff will come around and say, Sheriff Fox, get out of here, boy. Yeah. And doggone it, you know, sheriff comes around, you respect the sheriff and say, okay, I'll do it. That's all it comes to.
I think I could answer both of his questions. House Bill 360 was actually signed into law by the governor in 2012. We've used that language all along, but it was actually signed in 2012. They have committees that are set up on the state level, and they are actually in what's called the rulemaking portion of this law, where they decide what the rules are going to be. They go through what's called JCAR, which is the Joint Committee on Rule Review, and then they'll decide what those rules are and then pass those down to the state. So that has actually already been passed.
Sheriff, are they currently in the enforcement part of that?
Yeah, and the last email we got was that they've now included as part of those rules enforcement rules if you don't. The other thing that I wanted to address was, if we stayed on the same path that we're at now and are forced to meet these mandates that we know are coming, the city's probably going to have to hire about 7 additional dispatchers, and we're going to have to hire 4 additional dispatchers just to meet these mandates, which would be a whole lot more money and a whole lot more staff, as opposed to being in one center. We can do it at one center with less staff than we can in 2 different centers with more staff on each end, if that makes sense to you, to be able to provide that 24/7, 2 dispatchers per shift coverage that we're required. So hopefully, just to comment on your second point, Emmett.
So I asked earlier, what's Plan B if the levy doesn't pass?
Plan B would be we go back to the table, and if the voters say, you know what, no, we don't want to pay any additional taxes, then we go back to the table and figure out what the solution to the problem is that's coming before us.
Well,
Have you
I
not
think-
done that?
oh, Teresa, you want to ask a question? Yeah.
No, we've been trying to get through, you know, we had this study done, and the study, we kind of knew the answers to before we provided them with the information. But if the taxpayers say no, then we go back to the drawing table, just like anybody else would. Okay, this option, the taxpayers have spoken, this option is not viable for them. How do we, let's go back and look at this again. I think that's the sensible and responsible thing to do. Our thought was that we give the taxpayers the ability to have a voice on this. Do you want to support it, or do you not want to support it? And if the answer is no, then we go back to the table and we try to figure it out. So.
Right, second chance.
I think the bigger issue, long term, is if we're not proactive and try to catch this on the front end and meet whatever the standards are, whatever that is washed out, then we're going to see loss of revenues through the 911, things of that nature. And the state could come in and basically tell us where we're going to put our services, how they will be, and still charge us whatever funds. Is that correct, Mike? I mean,
There's certainly that potential, I guess. I've always thought that the best way to solve a local issue is locally, and not have the state of Ohio tell you what you're going to do as much as you can. I mean, to a certain extent.
But,
I mean, they're going to tell you.
We could put a shared services agreement in quickly. We can do this with a shared service agreement. One thing, and anybody who knows me, and I've said this to pretty much everyone, first step of tax increases is getting it on the ballot. And I believe that if I put something on the ballot and 51% of the people pass that and raise the other 49%'s taxes, that I have raised people's taxes. And I'm not okay with paying more taxes. I think people pay enough. They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to run businesses. Taking another $1 million out of the private sector is not going to help them do that. So step one is getting it on the ballot, like Emmett said.
Is there a meeting on the steering?
Ellen Horton meeting. Just a comment. You know, I heard the gentleman say that if the levy passed, excuse me, then Eaton could redirect money into, you know, further services to provide, you know, safety for the Eaton citizens. And that's a very good thing, you know. And by the way, I very much appreciate the fact that you are being proactive in, you know, consolidating, you know, the services and everything. I'm 100% for it. But if you add to Eaton services because a levy that costs me, you know, 10 times what I'm paying, okay, passes, then you're asking me to take money out, actually, you're taking money out of my pocket and putting it in somebody else's pocket. And were I to do that to you, it would be called theft. And I'm asking you to please not do that. If a levy is needed for an increase in, you know, general operations services, then please put before the voters a request for money for that purpose. Because if 911 dispatch services will save us the consolidation, if that will save us money, we don't need a levy for that purpose. That doesn't mean that monies aren't needed for other purposes. But be honest, please, with the taxpayer, and please don't expect me to foot the bill for services that I will not reap the benefits of, particularly when being a county resident means I am one of many who will pay the lion's share of that bill. And I'm just asking you to weigh that very heavily and reconsider how you're asking for funds. Okay, I don't want to say no when you're wanting to improve services for my household. Okay, I don't. But the way it's being presented, I can't do anything but vote no. Thank you.
Sheriff?
Where is he? I'm good.
My name's Mark Conning and I live in Jasper Township. I fully agree that this update not only is needed and is good, but it's required by the state of Ohio, and I understand that completely. I'm amazed. I see Eaton has a good representation here, and I don't blame them. A city the size of Eaton that can duck out from the cost of their communications, and the county agrees to take it over at no cost. That's unbelievable, and that's not how it's done in surrounding counties.
I assure you that the cities in nearby counties that have joined in to the sheriff's dispatching pay a large amount on a regular basis for that service. That's one of the big factors as to whether a city's going to go with the county on dispatching or not. In other areas now, there may be something different about Preble County that I don't know about. But I understand that the city is in the county. You know, we all know that. But Eaton apparently feels that the cost of dispatch is their responsibility because they've carried it all these years. And now all of a sudden to say it's not our responsibility anymore and dumping it, and the county agreeing to take it, it boggles my mind. Thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me speak.
Terry Willis, newly moved to Eaton, Ohio. I came from Canada. I heard the term mentioned about dedicated monies, that this had a positive effect, that if we dedicate the money only to this. Isn't that what this wireless fund is about? Isn't that dedicated money that's now tied up and we can't spend it on things we need to spend it on?
It's dedicated to 911, wireless 911.
And now we're going to dedicate something else and it's going to tie that money up, even if we don't need it exactly just for that. That's all I had to say. Be careful if you say dedicated monies, because it ties it up. And you can't spend on other things you need.
Are there any other questions or comments?
We're sitting here, you guys,
You know the drill.
Jeff,
You know the
Jeff
drill.
Holden, New Paris, the city, now, we're dancing around this. You guys are gonna dump this on the county. That's not open to debate, is that correct? So, I mean, that's,
The state's going to mandate that the county.
say, well, okay, but you're going to do it. Is there a drop dead date where you're going to do that and the county has to take it over?
Hopefully after the levy passes.
The levy doesn't pass, though. My point is you guys can still drop it on the county. And if you face nothing, you're going to rededicate some of your money to more. We have two pots of money, what you're spending now, what the county is spending now. And you want to rededicate some of that to more police services or whatever. Now, I understand that, but you can't keep dancing around this. You guys are prepared to do that. Is that correct?
Prepared to do what?
Dump 911 on the county at some point. I mean, New Paris came to the
Again, the only reason we're considering this is because Eaton will lose their dispatch center by the mandate of 360.
Okay, but okay, and is there any date set on that this is going to go?
I haven't heard a date yet. We're being proactive trying to beat
I
that.
got that, but at some point, you can just dump it on the county, correct?
I think Mr. Creech indicated that same thing, yes.
Yeah, I heard Rodney say that, and where'd you get it, Rod?
I'm sorry?
Where did you get it? Are you aware of any date that they're getting?
No, my point is, we are a Preble County PSAT. We will
Yes.
become a Preble County PSAT.
And
The
there's-
city of Eaton,
yeah.
and I'm not saying they would or wouldn't, they can wash their hands of
Yeah.
it. It's gonna be dumped in our lap. And
Anyway.
we're gonna have to come up with, I wanna know where we're gonna come up with $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, because I'm telling you, we can't. We're gonna have to go back
Well,
to somebody to help.
Realistically, right now, you're
It's
spending.
mandates, Jeff, that we're
between-
dealing with.
Yeah,
It's not our problem.
But realistically,
I mean,
they're
it is our
spending
problem.
money on their 911 center, okay? Or dispatch, 400,000, okay? You guys are spending, depending on weeks, here, 400-some thousand to 590,000. What's the county gonna do with their money? I mean, I've heard you say, we've got 2 more detectives, but that's what we have right now. If we pass this, the county has 590,000 or 400-some thousand dollars more. In fact, you've already given him some in the past. That has nothing to do with this. That pot of money is still sitting there. That's going, what, in the general fund, or does he get to hire some more staffing for the county residents?
From my position, that's where we look at, if there's savings, we would work with the sheriff on where those monies would go. Would it be deputies on the street? My point being is we've got to get through the initial stage of getting this set up. There's some construction costs involved in this. There's some other things that
But you're talking levying, what's this 1 mil tax? We have an idea what we're asking. It's $1 million. And what's that, 1 mil?
1.17.
1 point.
1.5.
1.5.
1.5 mil.
1.5 mil.
So.
So-
1.5 mil, okay.
You're going,
Generate.
if it passes, and there's debate of whether it passes or not, you get that $1 million, okay? My point is, as he said, you have it self-funding now, okay? It takes care of the dispatch. The county has $400,000 to $600,000 more.
And I understand what you're saying, but there's going to be some money, because that money's not going to be collected for a year out. You're going to have some issues to deal with, you know, just like the upgrades of the radio system that we've done, the towers that the sheriff has spoken about.
And those are 5 years out, and I
Well,
got
he's
that.
projected 5 years out, but what if one of them goes out tomorrow,
Well,
we're still on the.
And we both know the general funds in record territory, you got 160,000 the first half on CAUV, say you get another 90,000 the second half. You do have some funding sitting out there. You know, we could argue that you could have gotten full authorization and paying for his detective instead of just asking him to find funding this year. Why do they get to hire more people to protect the city out of their money, and we kind of are wishy-washy what we're gonna do with ours in the county?
We could operate the dispatch center.
But you have a self-fund, if you pass the levy, that dispatch center's covered, and isn't that the point? So, you got 600,000 possibly, that goes and inflates the general fund. Now, it wasn't too long ago, you said, I can remember you saying something like 10%, or it was $1.5 million. Now, I know that the expenses are a little up, but it's probably not $2 million. I'll find it, point it out to you. But the,
What are you referring to?
some time ago when Westler and was in here, and the general fund began to start to decline, you guys, it was getting high, and you wanted to put it into, was it capital improvement, some other fund, over 10, when you got over 10%, that would go into a different fund. Some other counties are doing it, and if I'm explaining it wrong, I apologize.
For capital improvement,
Yeah.
for buildings and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, well, we're way past the $1.5 million, and say it's gone up to $1.75 million because of the increase in the expenses. But again, if we get this levy passed, you still have $600,000, $450,000 more. That's going to be sitting out there. I'm just curious. They get, you know, and it's their money, so they can do what they want with it. And they've obviously made some kind of commitment, or possibly hiring more sheriffs or city policemen. I understand the objections. You know, we're going to be paying 10% more, and the city gets to hire more people. That I know, but they're 25% of the population. I remember Bob Snowcash saying that all the time. But it just seems like they're going to reap all the benefit, and we're going to be sitting here with the same thing, and 10% paying 10 times more.
Well, as the sheriff pointed out, all the other communities in the county
Get it free.
are I mean, they're getting the services now through the sheriff department. Excuse me. The city of Eaton is no different than any other community when you really look at it. I understand each one have their own law enforcement units in there, but I guess I look at it as the overall, and like I said, the village units assist the sheriff assists the villages.
You know,
I mean, it's a two-way street, and along with the dispatch, getting the dispatch center, that as the sheriff said, work out the issues with EMS and fire. There's issues there.
Well, there's good reasoning for having to. I know the cost is becoming prohibitive, but you mentioned tornado. If we have a storm that knocks out one center, you have a backup center. And we realize we're going to lose that. And I understand the efficiency thing, but I agree with some of these people saying, if we're going to be more efficient, we're going to save money. Where's the savings if we're past dumping $1 million tax? That's all I have to say. Thanks.
I'd like to clarify something. It's been said that, you know, we're talking about state mandates now, that the Motorola console upgrade is what started this conversation. I mean, I think there have been previous conversations, but it got ramped back up again when both entities had to pay $372,000. We were looking at upgrading both PSAPs. And so that's when the conversation started of, okay, we can save some money if we consolidate. We can, you know, provide better service if we consolidate. You know, I think that the county pays the same amount of money. City of Eaton, who are residents of Eaton, can save a substantial amount of money in this merger. Everybody wins here. I'm not comfortable with, you know, that we'll just dump it, and you'll be stuck, you know, servicing, you know, that's not a good way to work together.
It's morally wrong.
Yeah. So, I can go back a little bit on that, is when the discussion, and this was probably 4 years ago, I'd have to go back in time, but when this discussion, when the 911 wireless retired and the negotiation at the state level, was when the negotiation for the PSAP started. And I think that was 3 or 4 years ago. To get that,
You talking locally or the 911 wireless money?
911 wireless money. To get that continued, it was reduced, the
Right.
amount we collected, but
That's
to get
accurate.
that continued, the concession that was made at the state level was that PSAPs would be reduced.
That's
in
correct.
order to reduce costs.
That's correct.
Am I correct? I don't want to speak
That's
out of
correct.
turn.
That's correct.
That was 3, maybe 4 years ago. So that's where it started, the PSAP, and that was done at the state level in the negotiations on the wireless money. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've sat in several meetings in Columbus on that. That's what initiated the
Well,
reduction in PSAPs.
right. Well, with the shared service agreement, county can pay about the same, Eaton saves substantially. I just don't see any levy.
Don't fall hurt yourself. I'll have to call 911.
Larry Johnson in Camden. I was just sitting here, remember we talked about the county, the sheriff, that 911 call was for the county. And I remember when I lived in New Carlisle years ago, when we wanted the county to dispatch to our police, we had to pay for it. And that's what I see here. We dispatch for counties, that means the sheriff goes out. If the city wants to be in that 911 thing, they have to pay for that. Because that's, you know, we're paying for our county protection, and that's who we have respond to it, is the sheriff. But now you're saying we're gonna pick up the load more, which is fine, but now we dispatch them for free. And they're not county sheriffs, and I don't know how a sheriff can even dispatch them. They're not sheriffs. He's not in charge of it. Just a thought, and I don't know how all this works. But like I said, that's been a long time ago in '72. We had to pay for that service.
Well, to get the authority, the jurisdictions enter into an agreement. I mean, that's common practice. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, but
That's correct.
that's all have to be worked out, and it's no different than multi-jurisdictional for, help me out here, Jack.
Cameras, damn.
Responding to
I'm not gonna weigh this.
That's uncommon.
Well, you know, that's what I say, because when we're gonna dispatch to them or dispatch to them, they don't cover anything out other than their city. So that's the part that, you know, I say, why, it's not, well, we use the word fair, it's a dumb word to use, but if you're paying for their dispatch, for their police, then they should pay something for it, for just the dispatch. Thank you.
Terry Willis again, Eaton. Clarify, does House Bill 360 specifically specify that the county sheriffs pick up the dispatch, or just as SB1 call center? Give it to Eaton.
Yeah, let them have it.
Let them have the responsibility and let the county go.
Yeah.
Think outside the box. They already got something established. Make it a little easier on the sheriff, make his life a little easier.
I believe the sheriff is responsible for dispatching his people, correct?
Yeah, I would want to dispatch my people.
And the city of Eaton,
I mean, is there a problem with having Eaton dispatch to you if there's a sheriff need? They
Please
just
discuss it.
fire the call over to you? I mean, I don't know how this stuff operates either, but
Good point,
it seems to
guys.
me if they have the bulk of the 911 calls and they already have a call center, we're trying to take it over from the outside, well, let them work it on the inside. Let them dispatch out to our sheriff, and let the sheriff do his job on the outside. Just an alternative.
And then we can pay them.
Yes, because we're good neighbors.
Yeah, but
If I may piggyback on Terry's question, as far as jurisdiction, if the county takes over the call center, and
Emmett, can you come up to mine?
Got you, didn't you?
Tried to get out of that, didn't you?
Yeah, tried to get out of it. Smiling. If, Emma Boone, College Park. If the county takes over the call center, and the sheriff is running the call center, and the sheriff's dispatcher dispatches an Eaton police officer, and if he does it incorrectly and sends the police officer to the wrong address, who gets sued? The county?
Everybody.
City of Eaton? Yeah, that's a matter of jurisdictional authority.
You know.
The sheriff directing the police officers of the City of Eaton. Or, if the City of Eaton were to take over the central dispatch, the sheriff just mentioned that he would want to control his county deputies. Would not the chief of police in the City of Eaton not want to control his police officers directly as well? He would give authority over to the county sheriff to tell his officers where to go. And again, if there's a mistake in dispatch, who gets sued? The county?
I'd say everybody. They would just put everybody in there.
Unfortunately, all parties involved.
Yeah, they probably, if they pass in front of your house, they'd probably sue you too. Anybody can sue anybody for anything.
Any other questions?
Will I be ticketed for parking in a 2-hour zone?
No, everybody's
Unless you're guilty. For sure.
Is that in the future or today? Oh, today.
That would be dispatched by the cities.
And I don't think they would dispatch for parking violation, I would hope.
Does anyone else have a comment that they want to add? Mr. Washington?
Try to keep my mouth shut, but
I know
I just can't.
You were fidgeting back
I
there.
was-
Yeah.
I was a police officer for the first part of my career. Chris Washington, Gasper Township, clerk of courts. I guess my main comment would be, and the reason I'm saying this is because as an county elected official, I haven't had a raise in 9 years. And the president of the Ohio Senate has asked that a committee be established to determine whether or not I should get a raise instead of them doing the job that the law tells them they have to do. He's trying to duck out of what he needs to be doing. Well, I think that our county commissioners and the fathers of the City of Eaton need to get together and sit down and talk to this. I haven't heard the city say that we're not going to give you any money, we're going to keep all of it and spend it. I think you need to sit down and talk to them. They're already spending money. If you can help them save money, help them save money. If they can help us save money, they should help us save money. I'm not for higher taxes. If we have to put a levy on, maybe it could be smaller, But first, I think that this body and that body need to sit down and discuss it before we talk about any kind of a levy.
They have been.
Figure out, pardon me?
They have been for the last year.
They've been what?
The city, and there's been a committee. The city and the county have been sitting down with members of the.
And the city has said that they're not going to pay a dime. Is that correct?
As a matter of fact, we bought a console already. If you're asking what we.
Okay, but I mean, if we go to the sole single system, the City of Eaton won't contribute to.
I can't speak to that right now.
Okay, but that's something that could be negotiable. Could be. But it hasn't been talked about with the board. The board and city council. That's all I'm asking, is that the board and city council sit down and talk about it. That's the only way you're going to find out. A committee is okay, but I think that the board and the council need to sit down and talk about it. They're the ones that need to be communicating, because they're the only ones that can actually say that, you know, we need a levy or we don't. The committee just makes recommendations. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ellen Horton. I just want to say that, you know, I want to acknowledge the chief law enforcement official in the county is Sheriff Simpson. And so he would have to maintain some type of control over, you know, services that are dispatched. You know, whether it's situated in Eaton, which is a part of the county, or in a county location. So we're not in any way trying to disparage your authority. Okay.
Anyone else? You know, I guess my only thing here is, this is my opinion. Since I've been in office, we had to go through cuts. We've supported the sheriff in trying to get some personnel back, along with infrastructure, technology. We spent quite a bit of money at the sheriff's office, and I feel that if I'm sitting here, we will continue to look at that. Now in the future, I guess the biggest challenge I see is we're looking at about an $800,000 plus shortfall if we have to go to all the upgrades and become a dispatch center to meet the state standards. Even leaving our existing budget in there, and I can tell you that we cannot come up with the $800,000 out of the general fund. We can in the short term, you're right, but can we sustain that? There's no way. So we have to look at other avenues. I guess what I've heard from the city, that they're struggling also, and I don't feel that they believe in the long term that they're going to have a whole lot of extra capital money to continue to put towards dispatch center. I think this putting it before the voters, in my opinion, is, lets the voters tell us what type of service and what level of service we want. That's my personal opinion.
Can I ask one quick thing? You said $800,000 shortfall. Where is that shortfall, and is that a yearly shortfall?
Well, if the sheriff, according to the study, it's going to take $1.3 million to run the dispatch center.
What page is that on?
Along with,
I missed that number.
but that takes personnel along with capital in the future.
That's everything.
Okay. We're currently at about $450,000 of the general fund money, so there's an $800,000 plus shortfall.
I didn't see a 1.3 million.
So my personal opinion is we will not be able to make up that. Now, can we make up some of it? Yes, but the $800,000 we can't. So my personal opinion is I think we just need to put it before the voters, and as I told the sheriff and these guys, if it doesn't pass, then we regroup. We have to figure out what we're going to do then.
We're getting two different stories. We have one commissioner telling us the money is there, and we have another commissioner telling us that there's an $800,000 shortfall. Somehow, this needs to be explained to the voters. I need to know where these figures are coming from, upon what you're basing these figures. You can make numbers say anything and expect the public to believe it, but I've been duped often enough that I'm not that stupid anymore. And I would like to see the figures.
Here are the figures that I have, and I have page numbers of where I got them in the feasibility study. So you're welcome to have this. I read the feasibility study, I bookmarked the feasibility study, and I didn't see 1.3 million in there anywhere. Unless it was including the 3 dispatchers per shift, which would be an inaccurate number. because that's not the number. I have 11 dispatchers and a supervisor, will cost us $650, 113, operating costs $165, technology maintenance $65, $675, for a total yearly cost of $871, $778. And you are talking a shortfall if Eaton doesn't contribute.
Sure.
So, oh, I have copies.
What our budget includes, and this is a 10-year budget that I put together, includes wages, benefits, health insurance, when we look at employees. Leads are, yeah, but it's probably been updated since then, these.
Okay.
Our upgrades, our annual upgrades for the MARC system for the law enforcement side, our post-warranty on the console that we did, console upgrades that we did. 911 and CAD, which is virtually very little money each year. Infrastructure, which is the maintenance agreements on our systems. Other throws in clothing, supplies, things of that nature that you need to run that office. MARCS fees to the state for all of the law enforcement radios that were put on the MARCS system. And it puts back money each year for capital, so that when it's time to replace these tower sites, not only now, but 15 years down the road, that we continue to set aside capital money, so when it's time to do that, or update other infrastructure that may need updated, that we've got the money to do it, and we're not scrambling on how we're going to do that.
Well, even at that, the first year of that is at 917.
The numbers, that's probably from the very first round of numbers we put together.
Okay.
What date is that?
Right.
I have a date.
We're at the first year, we're at about 1.299 million.
So do we have a copy? Do you
I
have a
can
copy of
copy
that?
it. Sure.
Because I haven't seen that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm getting my numbers from the feasibility study. I don't know.
You're looking at the 911 only, he's looking at 911 and communications.
Right.
Right.
So the reason you're hearing two sets of numbers, she's only sharing the information from the 911 dispatch study.
Right.
This is covering 911 and communications.
So how much do we
So
spend?
her numbers are accurate, she's the number one number.
So how much do we spend, if we spend 600, 500 and some for 911, how much do we spend for a total of the dispatch and the radios and the communication? Is that the 600 and 591?
The first year's budget for everything that we discussed is 1.29.
No, I'm talking about currently.
Currently?
What are we spending on what this levy will pay for? What are we currently spending as a county?
Yeah, there's difference. I'm at about 456,000.
456?
Right. Now that does not include the approximately 22,000 that comes out of the 911 fund, because you can only use that for 911.
So why do I have, where did the number on page 35 of the feasibility study, where did the number come from that says 591,506? I've got the other, the network costs, equipment costs, CAD costs, radio costs, office expenses, and other expenses totaling 164,889. Personnel expenses totaling 426,617. And so that puts your annual cost at 591,506.
Not all of that is general fund money.
Well, I'm just talking,
right.
well, I know, but we're just talking about what it costs the citizens of our county to pay for these
Right.
services.
I understand.
Not all of it's general fund money, but it is money that's taxpayer money that's coming from
Right, I
somewhere to
understand.
be spent. So are these figures, they're not including the communication numbers then?
None of those include capital costs to replace communication numbers.
Right, and I think that
Right.
in the next budget, we need to start
None of
preparing
those,
for that.
none of those numbers include 12 personnel.
Does that include the $100,000?
From my standpoint.
Combining?
From my standpoint.
No, this is your current.
Right.
This is your seven people.
If we were staying the status quo and there was no changes, your numbers would be accurate, but with the mandates and changes that are needed,
We're saving
our
money.
costs are going up.
It says we're saving money. The presentation that the sheriff showed us said that it's going to reduce costs.
I think you have,
We're combining dispatches and reducing overall
That's what that
costs.
was all about.
right.
Well, my total
Instead of
cost,
having two $1 million PSAPs, we can go to a $1.2 million PSAP to serve the whole county.
With the
So
existing
that
tax
is a
money.
savings of $800,000.
So with the if the current amount of taxation, you can support both, then when you combine them, that amount of money should be able to support the upgrade.
Theoretically.
There's no,
Right.
Sounds good.
in the city's budget and in my budget now, there are no infrastructure, money set back for capital infrastructure costs.
and that is something we need to think about in
Right.
the future if we know that
And
it's coming.
in the first year's budget that I proposed, there's $390,000 in capital money that we need to start setting back to help pay for stuff. That's a big chunk of change to set back for capital money to be able to upgrade this communication system. It's a big chunk of change.
I guess I just like to state, we are trying to be proactive. I don't like taxes either. I hate, I'm gonna probably pay a lot more than a lot of people.
I'm on a fixed
I hate-
income, so it means more to me
But
than
I
it does
guess,
to you.
I guess what my point is, we can be proactive, and if the writing's on the wall, what we're gonna have to do. If we have to, what happens, if we think what's gonna happen happens, we've gotta come up with $800,000. We don't have it. Worst case scenario, they come in and they shut down Preble County PSAP, could happen, and we get our PSAP moved to another county. Now, if that's what our taxpayers want, if they want to lose our PSAP, lose total control of our county, they have to vote on that.
You're telling me that I have to pay 10 times what I'm paying now in order to save money?
And you're telling them that if this levy doesn't pass, they're gonna lose their PSAP.
Quite possibly. I don't know what the future, where Denise is a commissioner, where are you gonna find $800,000 every year?
I'm still not convinced we need $800,000 all at once.
If you get all the numbers.
Or every year. I mean,
If
if we have this $750,000 for these towers, we don't need that all at once. We could replace a tower at a time and start cycling through like we do the cars. I mean, there's no reason that we have to have all this money all at once, and on a yearly basis. Because you're talking $1 million extra a year going forward. The county taxpayers, after 10 years, that's $10 million out of the private sector. That's $10 million out of people paying, providing for their families. So I'm not, I'm just not convinced that we need it. I think that it might take some more grinding of numbers, but I think we could pull it together as the two entities. I really do believe that we could. From what I've read this. I've read it and studied it. And if we have this extra tower cell thing that we need to deal with, that's something we need to deal with, because that's coming. We need to put it in the budget to start saving for those improvements. But with the money that we have now, with the money that's continuing to flow in with the wireless 911 funds and the 911 fund, I think we have the money to do it. And we could do it successfully if the City of Eaton contributed for the dispatch.
Just one quick thing.
Come on up and forward, please. Who wants to see you, Sheriff?
Everybody's gonna sit in the front next time, right?
I wouldn't count on it.
Just one quick thing. I keep hearing the Eaton's budget. Why are we even talking about that? This is a county. That's Eaton. Their budget shouldn't even affect us. We shouldn't even hear about it. You should tell us what it's going to cost us to run this center. And, like I say, referring back to what I say again, if they want to have their police to be dispatched, they need to pay something. And I think a little bit from everybody. You don't have to rip them off. We can all get together and say, hey, we want this to work. Thank you.
I do have a question for that for your question. If we're gonna charge Eaton, do we need to charge the village of Camden, the village of West Ellick, the village of El Dorado? So eventually you're gonna pay for it.
Well,
You're going after the taxpayer no matter what.
Hey, $400 or $500, it doesn't matter, you can get enough together.
In relative call volume, I mean, if that's the mentality, then it may have to come to that. Because, but in relative call volume, you can figure out a formula of what it would cost El Dorado. Like West Upton, it won't cost them anything because they're under a contract with the sheriff. You know, they.
Yeah, we
need
do.
this.
The contract with us was just for additional enforcement. We were in there because they had no police department.
Right, exactly, but I wouldn't
Right.
think that they would have to pay anything extra because they don't have people to dispatch. You're their people, you go through, you know, more and get.
I think his comment is that if you're basing it on call volume to a municipality, then you take that overall cost to operate that center and you divide it by the number of calls that you may have in there. One problem that does exist in Montgomery County, it's gotten very expensive for municipalities in Montgomery County to go through the RDC because their cost per call has gone so high to keep up with the cost of operating the center. And so there's pros and cons to looking at calls for service charge
Exactly. I mean,
and per capita charge and things like that.
If it becomes an issue, then that can be something we can explore. But if you're looking at the villages, you know, we're all cash strapped, where everybody's struggling for money. Eaton has a bigger tax base, they have more businesses, they have a better ability to pay. And before all this started, the villages were just sitting around minding their own business. They're perfectly fine with the way things are. I'm fine with the service that I get from the sheriff's department. I know that if I call, you know, somebody will come. I had a car accident, I had one of the sheriff's deputies come to me. You know, to drag the villages into this now, it just seems kind of unfair. They don't have their own piece out. What has been going on till this point historically is that you have taken on that, and I would think that if that was cost prohibitive, we would have already heard about it. We would have already heard, hey, we're getting way too many calls from Camden, maybe we need to start, you know, they need to be ponying up some money. So they're just sitting around minding their own business, and, you know, all of this came up. I don't think it's right. I don't even know how you would go to them and say, okay, now we need to pay. You know, and if it comes to that, and if Eaton insists that El Dorado pay something because they're not paying, you know, they are paying something, then it may be something we have to explore. I mean, I'll give you the point. If you use it, you should have to pay something. So.
But comparing Eaton to the
El
outlying
Dorado.
villages, you're not comparing apples to apples.
There's certainly less call volume in West Elkton than there is in Eaton. Certainly, just, I mean, it is what it is.
Did you want to? Go ahead, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Third time's a charm, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, if you want to address call for service, if I'm at home and I call an ambulance, they charge me for it. You know, it's a horrendous amount of money. That they charge me to send an ambulance out.
No, they charge you to take you to the.
Or if EMS shows up and tells me, yeah, you're a hypochondriac, we ain't going to take you to the hospital, they're still going to charge me. But you know, if it's a matter of calling the police department, there's records of who called, when they called, how long they called, and whatever. If you want to do a fee for service,
Charge them per call.
charge them per call. Yeah.
Any additional comments or questions?
We don't have anything else. We thank you for the opportunity to bring this down here so we can show you what we've been working on and some of the problems that we're trying to address. So we appreciate the board's time.
We appreciate the work that's been done. It's not an easy answer. But I think we've got to explore all options because unfortunately I think we're going to be faced with some additional mandates that we will not be able to afford if we don't be proactive. Thank you guys.
Thank you.